Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out this week's live stream where we're going to be going over a pretty important topic today. And as always, I do want to mention a few things before we do get started in going over this particular topic, which we're going to be going over understanding sort of warm-ups and cooldowns and why they matter for better gains. So before I do get started, I do want to mention that I have been doing a TikTok live stream every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So every Tuesday at this time on TikTok, you can watch a stream that I do where I'm going to be discussing topics that'll be sort of unique to that platform. So I'm not going to be discussing the same things. We're still going to, of course, be talking about fitness, nutrition, recovery, but I'm going to be talking about topics that are sort of outside of what I would talk about kind of in these particular live streams. So just so you know that those streams are not identical, I try to keep things a little bit unique and new for each platform so that it's not repetitive. So if you're interested in checking that out, my TikTok is at Brandon SP Fit. So that's again at every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. There has been quite a bit of traction since I started doing that. I've been doing it for almost a month now, doing the TikTok streams, and there has been a pretty good amount of viewership on there. I know yesterday I had 400 or so views on that video for, or that stream for 36 minutes that I streamed, so it was pretty good. So if you're interested in checking that out, please feel free to follow me on TikTok. I not only, of course, do the stream on there, but I also upload videos on there on, of course, different topics related to fitness and nutrition. Another thing I do want to mention is that every Thursday, I get the days confused. Every Thursday at the same time that I'm doing today, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, every Thursday I'm doing an X Spaces discussion. So that'll be tomorrow. And again, on that platform, it's a little bit different. It's more of a podcast top stream where you won't, of course, have a presentation or anything. I'm just going to be sort of going over a particular topic. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out my X profile. When you follow me, you'll get notified, of course, on there when I do go live in X Spaces. Another thing too is that, of course, I do want to mention my website as I usually do, which is bponlinefitness.com. You can find out a ton of information on there as it relates to online fitness coaching. You can sign up to my email list on there as well, where you can check out or get a free email newsletter each and every week. And I also have information on there, such as a free fitness blog that you can check out. One new addition that I've sort of added to my homepage is you can sort of check out my Instagram feed on the same page. So even if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can see some of my latest content that's on there. So that's something new that I've added on there. But I'm constantly trying to really keep, sort of that website updated, keep it up to date as much as possible. The latest live stream is usually uploaded there as well. So any of these live stream presentations I do, as far as the most recent one, I usually put it on the home page where you can view it. So even if you don't access YouTube, you can view it there as well. But of course, I do sort of cycle it out. So whatever is new, I usually change sort of that stream that's on there. So that's pretty much all I want to mention there as far as getting started here. I know that's a lot of stuff. But if you guys are interested in checking out any of those streams, feel free. If you're not, that's totally fine. I just want to, make use of all of these platforms and sort of, again, share what I have to offer. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get going with this topic, which is warm-ups and cool downs for better gains. So we're going to be touching over various different sort of topics in this particular discussion. We're going to be going over sort of the intricate details when it comes to warm-ups and cool-downs. So these are the main points that we're going to go over today. We're going to go over why warm-ups aren't optional. We're going to, of course, discuss the importance of warm-ups and why they matter. We're going to go over dynamic versus static stretching. I will explain what those mean. Also, the three-phase warm-up. We're also going to go over warm-up routines for training days, activation drills, warm up mistakes, the cooldown blueprint, and things of that nature. We are, of course, going to talk about cooldowns. I know it seems like we're just talking about warm ups, but we are going to go over cooldowns as well. So just so you know that that'll be in the discussion as well. We're talking about, cooldowns alongside warm ups. So let's go ahead and start with the topic of why warm-ups aren't optional. So, you've likely heard it many times that you need to make sure to warm up in your workout routine. But the truth is that many lifters don't realize warming up isn't just a nice to do habit, it's a physiological switch that primes your body for strength, muscle growth, and longevity in the gym. So, skipping your warm up is like hitting the gas in a cold engine. You can move, but you're limiting performance and increased risk every rep. So, when it comes to warm ups, this is a topic that I've discussed recently, I believe, on another stream. But when it comes to warm ups, a lot of people aren't aware of sort of the benefits that come with warm ups themselves. A lot of times we think of warm ups as more of a, sort of a gimmick, I guess you could say. But warm ups have a really important part in a routine in that it helps to really prepare our body for the workouts. It gets us ready to really it not only of course it builds and prepares the body, but I feel like it really helps to get the kickstarting the mind muscle connection process as we're going into our workouts. It makes us already sort of think with intention on how we are performing our workouts when we do our warm-ups. Now, when it comes to warm-ups, with warm-ups, what you're going to be focusing on is primarily more dynamic movements. So, with these dynamic movements, what you're going to be focusing on is, of course, targeting and activating those muscles that you are going to be engaging in that same workout that you're performing. So, when you're doing these workouts, of course, you're going to focus on, for example, if you're maybe doing workouts that engage the back and biceps on a particular day, you're going to be doing sort of dynamic stretches that engage those muscles. This could not only include, body weight type of stretching, but it could also include resistance bands. You could include sort of light dumbbell based, warm up exercises to sort of prepare the body. But just know that warm ups are not supposed to be intense. They're not supposed to be something that's just going to, completely override your routine. They're there to prepare your body for the exercise that you're going to be performing. It gets you ready, it gets the heart rate going, it gets your body warmed up, and you are already sort of having those muscles ready to go, especially when you're targeting those muscles and you're stretching those muscles out before you get started. It's helping to really better your performance as you're going into your workout. And not only that, it's also going to help with, of course, reducing that risk of injury as well, because you've already prepared those muscles and you're already building that mind muscle connection when you went into the warm ups. Now, again, mind muscle connection is where we're really being mindful on the workouts that we're performing. So, I did discuss a little bit and mention dynamic stretching, but I want to go over the difference between what dynamic versus static stretching are. So, dynamic stretching itself, as I mentioned, this is more stretching that involves movement. So, this is stretching that prepares you to perform a workout. So, a lot of times, like for example, if you're doing, more leg-based workouts and for a particular day and you're doing a warm up in your routine, you may do workouts that involve, training the hip flexors, training, doing, lot body weight lunges, doing any sort of dynamic stretch that is sort of activating those muscles for your warm up and getting you ready and prepared for the workout that you're going to be performing. So, on the other hand, what we have is static stretching. And what static stretching does is it improves flexibility and recovery. And this is something that you do in a cool down. A lot of times in cool downs, you focus on movements that are more, about stretching and holding a muscle versus doing a sort of dynamic based movement. So, to again clarify, dynamic stretching involves active, controlled movements take the joints through a full range of motion. Static stretching means holding a stretch without movement. So again, this is usually 20 to 60 seconds. This could be any kind of stretch that would, any basically in a cool down. What you would be doing is somewhat the opposite of a warm up, where you're not going to be doing dynamic movements, you're going to be doing static movements. And so, what you're going to be doing primarily is, of course, still engaging sort of those muscles that you worked out in your workout, but focusing on stretching out those muscles to really alleviate sort of that muscle tightness that can happen post workout, as well as to really help with sort of the delayed onset muscle soreness that can come from your workouts. And this can come usually 24 to 48 hours post workout. So it's not only, of course, helping you to stretch out that tightness, but it's also helping to really, amplify the recovery process as well when you include a cool down and static stretching. So sort of keep that in mind with these, two different points when we're talking about dynamic versus static. Now, let's go over sort of how you can structure a three-phase warm-up. So, warm-ups, again, like I mentioned, a few slides ago, warm-ups are not supposed to be really, high intensity. They are supposed to just get your body ready. And they do take a few minutes to really, sort of prepare for that workout that you're going to be doing. So this is just to give you an example. You don't have to necessarily do this top of warm up, but this can be a great sort of blueprint on how you can sort of incorporate a warm up to prepare you for a workout. So this is a example of a three-phase warm up. So phase one is your general activation. So this is the phase that is sort of activating the body. It's raising our core temperature and our heart rate. And what this does is this is getting the blood flowing, loosening the joints, and awakening the nervous system. We're doing, again, like I mentioned, those dynamic sort of stretching is what we're doing when we're doing sort of that activation phase in the warm up. Now, mobility and movement prep, this is going to involve a little bit more sort of movement outside of the dynamic stretching. So this is going to sort of improve that range of motion and joint readiness. Again, that's the main reason for the warm up is to really prepare those joints, prepare the muscles for the workout. So this is targeting the key movement patterns of your workout day. Again, like I mentioned, when you're doing warm ups, you want to kind of have them mimic the workouts that you're going to be performing. You want to have basically a lower intensity of those workouts in your warm up. So that's what you want to focus on primarily is activating those muscles that you're going to be training that particular day. So phase three is specific activation. So you're firing up the muscles you'll train and groove the movement patterns. So this is light and controlled reps of the main lift or accessory muscles. So like I mentioned previously, sometimes with warm-ups, you could include resistance bands or you can include some light dumbbell-based workouts, free weights. You can include different types of movements. Super bands as well, sort of to do stretching. There's many different types of exercises that you can incorporate in a warm-up. But the main thing that we have to make sure that we prioritize when we're focusing on a warm-up is to keep things at a lower intensity. Again, you don't want to overexert yourself in a warm up. The main thing again is just activating those muscles and really prepping the body for the workout itself. So, warm up routines by training days. So, this is sort of giving you a breakdown on how you can incorporate different warm-ups for different types of training days. And like I mentioned with warm-ups on, on your work in relation to your workouts, is that you're going to be targeting and activating those muscles that you're going to be working out that particular day. So here are some examples. So upper body days, this is what you would focus on. You'd want to focus on activating the shoulders, the chest, and the back, while at the same time prepping your joints for pressing and pulling based movements. So you want to incorporate those muscles if you're focusing on an upper body based workout day for your warm up. Now, if we're focusing on lower body days, we would want to wake up the hips, the knees, and the ankles for power and range of motion. This is again another example like what I mentioned previously. If you're doing, any workout that's involving those lower bodies, you're going to be trying to activate those quads. You're going to be activating the hip flexors, hamstrings, glutes, all of those muscles. You want to sort of prep them for the workout. So these two, the upper and lower body days, are just if you was to focus on oscillating those particular, muscles for those days. Now, when we're talking about push and pull, this is a little bit different, where we're sort of oscillating a specific set of muscles. Whereas with upper body, yes, we are focusing on a specific set of muscles, but we're focusing on more oscillated amount of muscles. So this is more of like your more traditional workout split, I guess you could say, outside of just focusing on upper and lower. So for a push day, this involves muscles of the chest, the shoulders, and the triceps. Our main focus for our warm up should be to increase blood flow again and joint readiness for the pressing movements. So again, push day workouts is going to involve a lot of pressing based movements because your chest, your shoulders, your triceps are all being engaged in that particular workout. Now, on the other hand, when we're talking about a pull day, this is your back, your biceps, and your rear deltoids that are being engaged. So with these particular, warm-ups for this particular day, you would want to focus on engaging the lats and upper back while focusing on improving that posture and that grip readiness in your warm-up routine. So on the other hand, we talked about a little bit about the upper and lower body. So if you were to do, specifically that type of training, sort of routine, and then, your push and pull, if you're focusing on oscillating those muscles that do those movements, that's another example. But for the full body and conditioning days, this is a little bit different. So what we're doing for these days is our focus is to elevate the heart rate, is to get the heart rate up and to loosen joints and ready the entire system for high output. So your warm-ups need to really activate as many sort of muscles in the body as possible if you're focusing on full body and more conditioning based workout days. So keep that in mind as well. So the next point here I want to go over is activation drills. And what activation drills are is that they are short and controlled movements that turn on key muscles before training. What this does is this improves your coordination, your stability, and your mind-muscle connection. Again, mind-muscle connection is being brought up time and again because it is very important and it establishes that sort of mindset as we go into our workouts. So, what these activation drills do is they prep your body to perform at peak output and recover more effectively or efficiently, I should say, afterward. So, why activation matters for better gains. Again, what this does is this improves muscle recruitment, it wakes up dormant stabilizer muscles to do before heavy lifts. So what I do want to clarify what stabilizers are. So when you're performing different workouts, there are various different muscles that are going to be sort of activated in workouts. And stabilizer muscles are basically sort of that supporting muscle that is helping the main muscle to be engaged. So, like I've talked about, with compound and oscillation movements, whereas with compound, we're focusing on, larger sort of muscle groups being engaged all at once. But with sort of the oscillation movements, we're oscillating that particular muscle. So the reason why I'm bringing this up again, the compound and oscillation based movements, is that this is going to give you a better example on how to understand what a stabilizer is. So when we're doing oscillation movements, so again, oscillation movements are focusing on targeting a specific muscle. These are also known as accessory sort of workouts because we're focusing on sort of refining a specific muscle. This could be your biceps. Like when you're doing a bicep curl, this could be your triceps, tricep extension, tricep pull down. Anything like that is going to be those types of workouts that are oscillating that muscle. So if we're focusing on a bicep curl, just because we are engaging the biceps and we're focusing on targeting the biceps doesn't mean that there's no other muscles supporting it. So those supporting muscles that are for allowing that bicep movement to happen are known as your stabilizer muscles. Those are the muscles that are going to be activated. So I just wanted to mention that in advance so that you sort of understand what stabilizer muscles are. And I know a lot of times there's a lot of different terms thrown around. And again, feel free to ask me any questions you have on any of these different terms that I mentioned, but I did want to clarify what stabilizer means. And stabilizers are just basically that supporting muscle that is helping with the workout. Now, like for a compound workout, you have more muscles that are being engaged. Now, while you also have a ton of muscles being engaged, you do have stabilizer muscles that are helping to support that movement. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about waking up those dormant stabilizer muscles. We're helping to really wake up those supporting muscles that are helping us to perform the main chunk of our workout. So what this does also, when we're talking about activation drills, is this enhances mobility, joints, move smoother and safer through a full range of motion. This also boosts the nervous system readiness, making for a faster muscle response and better performance in your workouts. Now, activation drills, again, are really short and controlled movements. These are sort of, I don't want to say like hit training, but it's more of like doing sort of a workout, a small set of workouts kind of in a circuit in a way, where you're doing, of course, workouts that are going to be targeting those muscles that you're doing in your main workout, but you're doing sort of some mobility, some sort of quickness based movements. And that's what the activation drills are, is that they're sort of helping with that coordination, which is your ability to really, lead to more quickness and more ability to react faster while helping with stability in the mind muscle connection. Now, again, to clarify what mind muscle connection is that's where we're being intentionally mindful in how we're performing a workout. This is like, again, going back to the example of a bicep curl. When we're performing a bicep curl, what we're doing is that we're focusing on, of course, squeezing that bicep as we are raising the weight up, raising the dumbbell to our shoulder. This could be a barbell, but raising the weight up towards our shoulder, we're thinking about squeezing the bicep as we're raising the weight up. And so that's sort of an example of mind muscle connection. You're intentionally thinking about what you're doing. You're not just lifting the weight, you're focusing on fully engaging that muscle and thinking about how you can better activate that muscle. So, warm up mistakes to sort of be aware of. So, a bad warm up could be worse than none at all. So, if your prep doesn't prime your body and nervous system the right way, again, the reason why we're mentioning the nervous system is that the nervous system is helping to really activate and get those muscles going to help with, you know, priming the movements for the workout. So if your prep doesn't prime your body and nervous system the right way, you'll lift cold, move poorly, and risk injury, all while leaving strength potential on the table. So what you need to be aware of is these different points. So skipping it entirely is a mistake. What this can do is when you're jumping into straight and heavy lifts without raising heart rate or mobility first, this can result in stiff joints, weak contractions, and higher injury risk. Another thing to keep in mind is treating it like cardio, spending 15 minutes jogging or biking without muscle activation. So, when you're thinking of a warm up, it's not in the same way as when you're doing cardio. With a warm up, you're focusing on light exercises that are activating muscles. So don't just use cardio as, you know, sort of a supplement for a warm up. You need to have a set of exercises that are going to prepare the body for the workout. So the result is what this is going to do is that you're going to have a warm heart but cold muscles. So you're not going to have real prep for resistance work. And that's the main thing is we're prepping those muscles. Static stretching too early. So holding long stretches before training. So the main thing that you need to focus on is focusing on dynamic stretches. Again, more movement is what you need to think about. And with your cool down, what you need to think about primarily is static stretching. So think of warm up as a more dynamic, more movement, and your cool down as sort of slowing down. So what this results is when you include just static stretching in your warm-ups, is this is going to reduce muscles tension and power output before lifting. So when you think about these different mistakes, what you sort of notice is that you've got to treat warm up as a phase in your workout. You've got to treat it as sort of an extension of your workout and not sort of this separate thing that you're doing. It's still part of your workout. It's just a way to prepare us. And again, keep in mind that warm ups don't last that long. They can be between 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes more, but they're kind of in that range where it's not taking up a big chunk of your workout. So just keep all of these points in mind that you need to focus on adding them into your routine. Don't treat them like cardio, and also make sure that you focus on dynamic stretching and warm up based, your warm up based phase. So the cool down blueprint, and like what I mentioned with your cool down, what your cool down is focusing on is again more static stretching. You're holding different, parts, whatever you've targeted that day, and you're stretching out those particular muscles. So the main sort of idea of how a cool down goes is that you're going to decelerate. You're going to spend roughly 2 to 3 minutes in this sort of part of the workout where you're going to gradually lower your heart rate with light cardio or walking. So you're going to, again, that's the main focus is that we're sort of, getting our heart rate back down to where it was before we got started with our workout. What you're also going to do is stretch and lengthen your muscles. So this is going to last roughly 5 to 7 minutes. And what you're going to do again is static stretching. So you're going to stretch out those particular muscles that you targeted in that workout day. And you're going to hold the stretch for roughly 20 to 30 seconds, primarily 30 seconds if possible, each for, those particular muscles that you targeted and engaged in that workout. And you can also include gentle movement patterns for joint recovery, so mobility flow. And an example of what you could do is kind of add sort of a kind of like the like self myofascial release. And what this is doing sort of foam roller based, sort of stretching, things like that can help to alleviate stiffness in the joints. That's a good example of what you can include in a cool down sort of routine in a cool down phase. So this is roughly how long your cool down is going to last. Again, it can kind of range depending on what you're targeting and what you're training for a particular day. But just know that you want to have a little bit of cardio in there while also stretching out those muscles and really helping to get your heart rate back down to a more steady state before you went into your workout. Alrighty, guys, so that's pretty much all I have to discuss with you today. Again, I hope that you found this helpful and valuable and gave you a little bit of insight on how to approach a warm up and a cool down. These are pretty simple sort of tactics that you can include. And again, keep in mind that what these phases do is they are really beneficial to, of course, prepare you for the workout, but also prevent that risk of injury in your workouts, really bettering your performance at the same time in your workouts and how you are able to really move in your workouts. While also, when we're thinking about the cool down, that's helping with the recovery process, that's helping with reducing sort of that, delayed onset muscle soreness, that stiffness that can happen after your workout. It's helping to alleviate that while helping with the muscle repair and recovery process at the same time. So think about all these points as you are, if you're trying to get adjusted to a workout routine or you're trying to figure out how to get started, this is a great place to sort of get an idea on how you should start your workout. The main thing to do is to focus on a warm up that is going to, of course, engage those same muscles that you're going to be targeting for a specific workout that you're performing. So, again, guys, if you have any questions about anything I've discussed here or any previous live stream, feel free to let me know. I'm willing to answer any of those questions you have. Again, guys, I do want to mention my website, bponlinefitness.com, for information on online fitness coaching and a ton of free resources that you can check out. Again, guys, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can watch me on TikTok at Brandon SP Fit. If you do want the link to my TikTok, feel free to let me know. And tomorrow on Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, the same time as today, as I would do, is that I'm going to be doing an X Spaces discussion. Again, if you guys want the link to that, feel free to let me know. I do try to make a sort of reminder in a post that I share usually the day before whenever I do any of these streams. So definitely, check out my Facebook or anything like that. Or of course, contact me if you're interested in checking this stuff out. But another thing I do want to mention before I do close out, all of my videos are archived on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. So I use multiple platforms to sort of share these videos. So if you are on any of those platforms, you have a profile on any of those platforms, feel free to check them out. Again, I have a YouTube channel, a Rumble, and an Odyssey account as well. So those are all get archived on those platforms. So thank you guys once again for taking the time to check this out. I really hope you found it helpful and valuable. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all. But I will see you guys next time in the next live stream. So I hope you guys have a great day.